What's up guys, my name is Edward. I'm the host for this show, MIDCONVO, and this week's guest is Lindsay Thomas. She is a content creator in the Seattle area for specifically ballet content creation, and she works at PMB. And so hope you guys enjoy the show. Let's roll intro music. How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good. Thank you so much for joining the podcast today. Could you explain who you are, what you do? Let's start from there. Actually, what's PMB? Let's start there.
Good question. Pacific Northwest Ballet is what it stands for. It's the fifth best ballet company in the country, located in Seattle.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So what do you do at PMB, and how did you start into this?
So I work as a videographer for PNB. I also do some photography, some kind of in-studio photography for them. And I've been doing that for almost 10 years now. I started here as an intern in 2009 and just slowly worked my way into a full-time position. And with all of the content creation that's happening and in the world right now, it's become more and more valuable to the company, I think.
That's awesome. I mean, we were chatting briefly before this, and you pretty much stumbled upon this. And today's podcast, guys, for those of you guys watching and listening, the title is Finding Your Niche. And the reason why I thought this was so fitting because, Lindsay, you do a lot of specifically ballet content creation. Actually, only ballet content creation across, as you can tell from your social medias and your websites and whatnot. So maybe you could explain how, when you first approached PMB back in, when was it?
2009.
2009. So video wasn't even, it was not apparent at the time. It was like a thing that businesses weren't really doing. Mm-hmm. So how did you pitch?
Myself?
How did you get that job? I mean, back in 2009, YouTube was 4 years only? 4 years new, which was still a baby, infancy for YouTube at the time.
Right. People don't realize YouTube started in 2005. It wasn't that long ago. It's become such a part of our everyday lives that it's hard to think about life without YouTube. But back in 2009, when I graduated from Skidmore College and was looking for a job, ballet companies weren't doing YouTube. Nonprofits aren't exactly known for having excess amounts of money to kind of play around with new trends. So it was very fortunate that I had a little bit of a video background that I started in college, and I pitched myself to PNB as a marketing intern. And I didn't know this at the time, but they had received a grant that whole goal is a 5-year grant. The whole goal was to engage young audiences, like 18 to 25, I think. And the young audiences were saying, we want more video. And so when they were looking through the intern applications, they said, this girl's got some video background. Let's bring her in for the summer. I started making little, kind of promotional clips for them. And they said, do you want to stick around? We can, hire you for 10 hours a week. And I was like, yeah, that sounds great. I can live on 10 hours a week. And I also, at that point, joined a video creation company, and they taught me, Creative Media Alliance. They taught me a lot of things that I do now in terms of video editing and producing. And
So if we could, maybe we could backtrack a little bit before PMB then. So it sounds like you kind of created a position for yourself at PMB. I mean, not intentionally, but just so happened that they needed you at the time. Timing was of the essence during that period of your life. Maybe did you go to college? What was that like? Did you major in video? How did you stumble upon content creation and dance?
I was a psych and dance double major at Skidmore College, and didn't have any idea that I would go into video or photography. I knew that I wanted to do something surrounding ballet. I grew up dancing. I grew up doing ballet throughout my childhood, teens, thought I wanted to be professional, realized I wasn't good enough. Went to college, kept dancing kind of on accident, and then video was always something that I just enjoyed doing in high school. I would do it on iMovie, on my old iMac, the colorful ones, the big blueberry, that one. And that was how I started doing video. And then in college, I would go to the media center and just create stuff there. That's where I started on Final Cut, and then
Final Cut. Nice. I do Adobe Premiere Pro, so like
I'm
trying
transitioned.
to learn Final Cut though.
They changed to 10 and I was like, I'm
Got
out. I stuck to, 7 for like 3 years, didn't upgrade any of my software for 3 years for fear of losing it.
Yeah.
And then was like, okay, they're clearly not going to go back. I thought they were going to go back and fix it.
Yeah.
They didn't. So I'm on Premiere now too, and it's good, but.
Oh, okay, cool.
I have
cool.
to, I like Final Cut better. But.
Nice. I'm trying to learn actually Final Cut just because we use Apple computers and I'm trying to like learn Final Cut. So that's awesome. So you basically learned video production kind of a little bit through like college years. You said you're a double major, so you did psych and ballet.
Psychology and dance and
then you found videography through ballet. So obviously, since you're a double major and you liked psych, did you enjoy that? Like, did you enjoy that side of your major?
It, but I always, I never thought it was going to be my career. I never had aspirations to be a psychologist, or I just thought it was something that is very relevant to any job that you could possibly have. You have to declare a major at some point. I'd taken some psych classes at community college during high school, and I really enjoyed them. I thought they were fascinating. So yeah, and at Skidmore, they're all about the like mixed majors, sort of do different things in different arenas and try to combine them together. So they were like, yeah, you want to be a psych and dance major with video on the side? They were super supportive about it. Yeah, exactly. They were like, we believe in you. And I was like, yes. So
that's how you kind of came across doing both of them.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And then the video, I never would have thought I would have become a videographer. And it was just kind of luck, timing, YouTube being a new thing, me thinking YouTube's really cool. We need, I started a YouTube channel for the dance department at my college and was like, you guys need to be putting out your good dancers through a video format. Let's try this YouTube platform.
Yeah.
And that was obviously.
Man, you're way ahead of the curve at the time. I mean, even now, YouTube is still blowing up now, and obviously we've had waves come and go since then. And that was what year when you were?
That was 2000. That was in 2009.
What was YouTube like, in terms of the business side of things at the time?
I mean, there was
non-existent.
Right, it was non-existent.
Yeah.
It was really a thing that people did more for fun. It wasn't, when anything starts, it's like, oh, this is fun. It's not like, oh, how can I monetize this? Oh, how can I become a vlogger? That was not relevant at all. It was just like, wait, 200 people watched my video? Like, sweet. It was just kind of that.
Now it's like, only 200 people watch our video. Totally. It's the flip side. Now if you don't get 200,000, it's like you feel like a failure.
Exactly, yeah.
Isn't that crazy how time has changed since then?
And it hasn't been that, it's only been 10 years since then, and it's completely different.
That's crazy. So you have had ballet and psych. At what point did you realize that ballet, like your passion for, speaking of ballet, they're doing auditions next door, which is why you guys hear the piano. I'm not sure if you guys can pick that up, but it's nice. There's piano in the background.
We have live music accompanying our interview here.
So how did you make that jump between, after you graduated, you're like, oh, maybe I don't want to do psych, and you're doing ballet? Like, I guess going more to our title, which is finding your niche, how did you run with that? I feel like a lot of people, when they're going to college, when they're figuring out themselves in their like early 20s, they're like, I'm not good at anything. I'm not sure what I want to do with life. And I feel like most people feel like that in college. I mean, not that many people know exactly what they're going to do as soon as they graduate high school. They're like pretty lost, I would say. How did you make that transition between ballet is going to be my thing, I'm going to roll with this, I'm going to run with it and become, a professional in this space, whether it's actually dancing or creating content?
It was it's not like I came out of college and was like, okay, this is it. It was really, when I went to college, I kind of thought, I realized when I was about, when you're around 16 is when you kind of need to decide if you're going to try to pursue a profession as a professional dancer or if you're going to kind of go to college. Around then I realized I wasn't good enough, which was a devastation in its own right. I've gotten past that. But yeah, once I realized that I wasn't going to be a professional, I thought, oh, okay, well, maybe I'll dance, maybe I won't. When I went to college, Skidmore does have a good dance department, but I thought, oh, I'll just take a few classes. And I ended up taking, 4 days a week, doing our performances, still wearing my point shoes, even though I did not think that was going to be relevant anymore. And even if I kept kind of trying to like leave and maybe, drop a few classes, and it just kind of kept coming back to me. And even after I graduated college, I was like, okay, definitely retiring the pointe shoes now. I'm done with ballet. It's too hard on the body. It's emotionally hard. And then I just kept ending up back in class, and I realized like, okay, ballet is really my passion. And I know we talked about this earlier, but the whole, let's see, how do I get into this? It's like a longer story. I'm going to make it short.
Take your time. It's all good. We don't have to be anywhere.
Realizing that I could still be involved in the ballet world without being a dancer was kind of a novel idea to me. I hadn't thought that there's so many ways to be involved in your passion without actually being the person doing the art form, which is why being able to come into ballet at this different angle, at this kind of what started out as video and now has become this, like you said, content creation and sort of spreading the word of why ballet is accessible or beautiful or moving or fun or all these things that I find it to be. The fact that I now get to use film and photography to share that with a wider audience is just the best.
That's awesome. So you basically broke through your devastation, which was the fact that you realized that that's hard to accept, that you love dance and that you can't be a professional at it. It must have been a hard time, but then like you just said, you broke through that and you're able to find something within that passion that's not necessarily that specific thing.
Yeah, and it took about 3 years, and I didn't even realize it was happening, that I was kind of having this mini heartbreak of like not getting to do the thing that I had spent so many years trying to be.
Yeah, I mean, since you were little.
Since I was little, I started ballet when I was 4, and all it took was one therapy session where the therapist compared it to like a relationship with ballet, and that for years I'd been putting in all of these emotions and time and effort, and then it had been giving me back all of these kind of rewards through performing and satisfaction and getting and improving and being better at something, and then it wasn't giving me back as much anymore. And so all of a sudden she was like, yeah, it's kind of like ballet has broken up with you and you're dealing with the heartbreak of that. And I was like, oh my God, that's exactly, I had convinced myself that I was over ballet, and I wasn't. And once I realized like, oh, ballet's not that into me in this way, in this medium of actually dancing it, I realized, oh, like it gave me the freedom to find new ways to appreciate it, and for new ways for it to reward me, which is what I'm doing now. Being able to share the talent of the dancers in the company here and the students that I work with is the most satisfying thing ever. Being that middle man of between what the hard work that they do in the studio and what people see on stage, I get to kind of create the space in between where they're rehearsing and working so hard. Being able to share that with the world is just
that's awesome.
Really satisfying and really rewarding in a way I never could have imagined back when I was sad about not being a professional.
Yeah, I mean, like, well, you didn't even know that it was going to be your niche that you stayed in when you were younger. It kind of was a gradual progression until you got to a point where it kind of took over your life, but then it was like a love-hate relationship kind of thing because you wanted to do more, but you couldn't at the time, which is, I think, is a really key point in your story specifically. And I think everyone who has a passion that they're chasing, and something that I think we could both agree on, is that passion chasing or finding something you love or you're passionate about, it doesn't just like happen overnight, or it doesn't just come to your door and it's like knocking like, hey, here's your passion, run with it, right? Like it's a gradual progression that happens over years, maybe even like your whole lifetime up until that point where you decide you want to run with something. Maybe could you share a little bit on how you were able to keep ballet like by your side, but also adulting, like going to college, doing psych, like a lot of people I feel like get stuck here. Like they have a passion at that young age, like maybe when they're sometimes as young as elementary school, middle school, but then they kind of keep it on the back burners until like they're fully like evolved into what they want to do. People are clapping.
I know, they're clapping for us.
So how did you keep it on the back burner while still dealing with all the stresses of being in New York, going to college, trying to figure out adulting, and everyone you went to school with is obviously pursuing their own passions. Was it easy to balance the two? Or at one point were you ever like, oh man, like maybe I should just stop this whole ballet thing and just go to psych and get a degree and get a job? Like,
I think in that sense I was very lucky that ballet kind of kept, it just wouldn't go away. It wasn't necessarily me like chasing it over and over. It was just something that I would kind of like leave it and then I would miss it. So it just kind of kept coming back. And I was very lucky. My parents are extremely supportive of me following an artistic career, which I know is not the case for everyone. So I felt very fortunate that
for sure.
They were like, yeah, you want to become a freelance, you want to work for 10 hours a week in Seattle for a ballet company? Sure, do that. Follow your heart, which it worked out.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Wait, you're half Asian?
Yes,
because,
half Japanese. Yeah.
Asian parents, well, my parents did. Yeah.
My
Go
mother,
become doctor, become lawyer, whatever, right?
Yeah, my mom is definitely the atypical Asian. That was never really her thing. I don't know if when she grew up, she started out as it was like you have to become an elementary school teacher. She's like, so she did that, and then she was like, nah, I don't want to do this. So I think she was always like, yeah, go travel the world, like experience things, be different, be unique. I'm like, okay.
And it carried over, obviously, and now they're supportive of what you do now.
Yeah.
Awesome. So how do you stay focused on your niche of ballet content creation? I'm probably going to throw in some B-roll here if you guys are watching on YouTube, probably some photos, maybe some video clips that you've taken. Your work is awesome. How do you stay focused in that niche of ballet? Like obviously you do content creation, so have there been time where you're like, oh, I kind of want to maybe do wedding, I kind of want to do portraiture. Like how do you stay so focused on that one area of your career?
Well, when I first started, I fully took to heart the say yes to everything, and I did those things. I did the headshots. I did a few weddings. There were some pretty random projects that I picked up because I believe that in order to figure out what you like to do, what your passion might be, you kind of have to try a lot of things first. And so I did all those things, and then it was a really big day when on my website I took down all of those, that part of my portfolio because I was finally at a point where it's like, okay, this is what I want to be, and I need to market myself accordingly. Just put out the things that I would like to do in order to get that type of work. What I've kind of realized over the years is that my passion isn't necessarily in filmmaking or in photography, but that it's really in ballet. So that's kind of how I keep my focus, is by continuing to grow those skills as a way to showcase ballet to our audiences. I think for you, it's more about like filmmaking is your passion. Trying it, doing those drone shots, doing this and the cool stuff, and expanding what you're capable of doing is what's exciting to you.
It is. That's interesting because we are totally on the flip side, opposite. I really couldn't imagine taking my position at another performing arts, for example. Like the idea of doing what I do for, say, the symphony or the opera, even an art form that's similar to ballet. Like I would rather go into another. If my job was eliminated tomorrow, I would rather continue to work in the ballet field. In another area. Ballet is what the passion is about. That's how the focus stays so narrow. But it didn't, it's not like I could just immediately, I didn't start and say, oh, okay, now I only do ballet photography. Like, that's probably not a good way to run your business. You have to, when people ask me, they say, okay, how did you get to where you are? What should I be doing? I want to do what you're doing. I say, you need to shoot everything. I don't care if you just have an iPhone. You need to shoot everything. You need to figure out light. You need to figure out, you don't need great gear. You just need to do it. So that's kind of, I'm lucky. I work in a building with all of these beautiful subjects, but when I look at my work from, 6 years ago, oh my God, it's awful. So if I would have started just selling those services, no one would have hired me. But you got to start somewhere.
So, exactly, you have to start somewhere, and maybe don't publish all of your original work because it'll come back and haunt you. But just do it. Just shoot, and you'll shoot. That's my best advice for people who are interested in. Yeah,
just hitting on that just a little bit more. Like you said, we're on the flip side. My passion is filmmaking, and so everything else is kind of in addition to that. So I'll do like weddings, I'll do car, I'll do this because I love filmmaking. It's not that I love wedding photography or specifically, or car photography or videography. I just love filmmaking. But you love ballet, and you've created filmmaking as like a tool to help you like dive yourself deeper into your passion, which is a great nugget for everyone who's listening and watching, because if you are passionate about something, I feel like in 2019 and 2018, really, in my opinion, I feel like the digital medium has been like bombarding people. Like if you don't have a social media, if you don't have some kind of like photography or video skill, you feel like you're left behind. And so naturally, a lot of people nowadays are picking up cameras, and camera companies are making consumer cameras that are like ready to pick up and go kind of things, because content creation has become more and more relevant in our society today. But that doesn't mean that you should drop your passion and do something you're not so passionate about, which is content creation. But you should still do your passion. Maybe it's not content creation yet, and as you keep deep diving into that, maybe pick up a camera and start documenting that passion, right?
Yeah.
Instead of choosing one or the other, right?
Right. I mean, film and video, any passion is applicable to
literally everybody needs video now. Any business needs video.
Everyone, yeah.
So a lot of times people are saying that what they're passionate about, there is no job for it. They're like, oh, well, what I'm passionate, like no one's gonna hire me for that. Like I just love doing that, but nobody's gonna pay me money to do that, which is kind of a similar situation what you were dealing with when you first came to PNB. You're like, I don't know if someone's gonna pay me at my skill level to do ballet. I wanna do it because I love it. Maybe could you hit on that a little bit? I know we talked about it a little bit earlier, so are you saying to still run with it even though there isn't necessarily a position or job title out there for what they love doing? Yeah,
I mean, when I started, when I applied for the internship, there was no videographer position. There wasn't a videographer position at any ballet company. But I thought it was valuable, and clearly so did the demographic we were trying to appeal to. And so I just came in, and it started small. I was only able to work 10 hours a week, and I created little trailers for the upcoming productions, and the next year it was 15 hours a week, and then by the third year it was full time, which was awesome. But I do think there's a lot of value in finding a place where the work that you can do isn't being made and making it. And that doesn't mean that someone needs to hire you in order to do that. You create it on your own, then that's your portfolio. Then you go and you pitch that and you say, hey, I make cool, dance videos. Here, doesn't your company want this? Just start creating, and that's the I don't have an ending for that.
Well, you're creating a need. You're creating the need, right? Like any good product. It's a
need that someone doesn't even know that they have yet. If you can find that need and be able to fill it and do the work and create the content for it, then it may take a while, but people will come around and they'll.
I mean, it's like any good product. When you buy a product, you didn't realize you needed that until you saw the ad. You're like, I need that in my life. I needed an Instant Pot until this Christmas. Exactly.
And it turns out I need an Instant Pot.
And it's the same thing. I think people don't realize it's the same thing for services. Like when you're pitching a business or a company, you have to pitch your services, and they're probably not going to think they need that until you pitch it. They're not going to go to you and be like, hey, we need that, because they don't even know that they need it to begin with. It's the same thing with products, right?
Yeah.
Let's shift the conversation a little bit into more relevant topic, which is college. I think most people who watch this podcast are in my age bracket, which is around 18 through like 24, and then you're how old?
31.
Awesome. Yeah. So your age bracket may be people who are graduating now, like maybe their PhDs or masters at like that level of college. And we talked about it briefly. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, what are your thoughts on college and studying abroad and like that whole experience in like your early 20s or like right after high school?
Yeah, I had a great time in college. I did make the decision to graduate in 3 years to try to save some money. And I did that by doing community college classes during high school and just taking the full course load plus some every single semester at Skidmore. And I'm not a believer that you have to go to college in order to do things. None of the things in my psych or dance major got me this job. It was through my own desire. Everything that I do is self-taught. I learned all of my maybe that's not totally fair. Most of the stuff that I know is self-taught. And I took myself to the media center at my college campus and said, hey, can you guys teach me how to do Final Cut? Nowadays, I could have learned that on YouTube, and it was a great resource, but not maybe worth the hundreds of thousands of dollars that it costs. It's a very expensive way to learn Final Cut. And yeah, I'm definitely at this age. I've got some friends and associates that are kind of realizing like, oh, I spent a lot of money and time getting my, to become a doctor, to become a lawyer is definitely one where people are like, ooh, I don't want to do this anymore. And then they kind of are starting over. So I'm not a firm believer in choosing something when you're 20 and spending the next 6 years learning how to do it. I think there's so much, especially in the kind of your like entrepreneurial style, that you can learn everything from the internet. This is amazing. If you want to become a photographer or a videographer, get a computer, sit down, and in like 6 months, if you watch all the videos and take all the pictures and do all that, you could learn so much for free. It's amazing. If you really want to do it, you can. So yeah, I'm all about the DIY, learning it.
YouTube, watching
YouTube.
late nights, trying to figure something out.
That's one of the ways I still kind of keep things fresh for me is, I've been at this job for almost 10 years now, and sometimes it's like, okay, I just need to learn a new skill. Okay, YouTube, how do I, do this and that? And you just, in order to keep it fresh, it's really important to kind of keep expanding your skill sets, and YouTube is the best place for it. So
awesome.
Not necessarily college. College is fun, but it's a very it's a very expensive way to have fun.
It is. It's an expensive way to go through a learning lesson, in my opinion. I think people, there's this new trend of like people knocking college and saying it's like not good for you or whatever, but it's not even saying that college isn't good for you. Obviously, some people it works out really well, some people it doesn't. I think it's more so targeted towards people who are lost going to college. I think that's a way. It's like if you're lost trying to figure what you're passionate about, I don't think you have to do that in college while you're spending thousands and thousands of dollars each month. You know what I mean? Because society wants us to believe that spending that kind of money to go to school is normal. But think about it, would you ever spend that kind of money like if you were not going to school? Probably not. You'd be like, that's crazy.
It's a lot of money.
On the flip side though, if you know exactly what you want to do, like you want to become a doctor and you want to become a lawyer and you're passionate about it, then of course you have to go to school for that. Or any kind of master's or PhD. Even if it's not, or even just communications and you're like passionate about that, then go to school because you will build a network, you will learn a lot. But there's this weird, I feel like I know a lot of people who are going to college and they're like, I don't know what I want to do yet. And I'm like, you're about to graduate with your 4-year degree. What do you mean you don't know what to do yet? And you're $50,000 in debt now. Yeah. But that's not everyone.
Right.
So
I think the one thing for people who are thinking about college, so I grew up in California and I went to school in upstate New York. And the one thing that I didn't think about was, I always thought I would come back to the West Coast, but I didn't think about the impact that having my entire friend network and like professor network and looking down the road and using the contacts that I'd made the friendships that I'd made at Skidmore, that how they would serve me later. It was kind of all of my friends kind of live on the East Coast. All of my college friends live on the East Coast. All of my contacts are there. It made returning back to California a bit more difficult than I anticipated it would be. So when you think about going to college and like going far away, I'm a fairly adventurous person, and I was like, yeah, no problem, but I didn't think about what would happen afterwards. So that is something that I wish someone had brought to my attention, that then when I was looking for work, I was like, I don't have any contacts. I don't have a network out here. They're all on the East Coast. So,
where you went to school.
Yeah, where I went to school. So that was
interesting.
Something I like to pass along.
I've never actually, it's my first time actually hearing that advice, so that's a good one for sure. How do you find inspiration when you feel like you're in a creative rut or your creative block? Like what do you do, like practical things that you do to get out of your like stuck zone?
This might sound so simple, and I know not everyone has the luxury of this, but I work in the same building that the ballet company is. The administration is upstairs and the dancers are downstairs. And when I hit a rut, I just have to leave my computer, leave my editing station, and go into a studio and just watch the ballet. There will be some times when I'm thinking, okay, how do I make this new upcoming ballet that no one's ever heard of? How do I make this relevant? And it's like, you just need to go in the studio. And it's taken me a really long time to kind of learn this. Go in the studio and watch, because there's inspiring things happening in there all the time. And sometimes I think that I just already know them. And it's like, no, go in there, experience it, and then share that with people. And getting to do that is just so great. There's so much about ballet that people don't know about, all of the work, how difficult it is. It is so hard. And the whole thing is they're making it look easy, but it has taken years and years of training. So much, the toll on their body, the physical toll on their body is extreme. They're mentally artists, but physically athletes, and it's an endless amount of content to share, which I feel very fortunate about. Because if I did work at a symphony, it wouldn't be as easy. Let's be honest. My job is pretty easy. Yeah. I come in, they're these beautiful, creatures who can act and dance and sing, and I'm very lucky. So
you love your job too.
I love my job, and just putting yourself in a space and letting that inspire you. Again, I know not everyone is so lucky to have such a visual inspiration too. That's the thing. It's so easy to make ballet beautiful. Obviously,
it's already beautiful.
Because it's already beautiful. They really do most of the work. I just make sure for the photos, I click the button at the right time, but they've spent 18, 20, 30 years in the effort to create that shape. So they really do a lot of the work. But other inspiration sources, Instagram it has its pros and its cons. I'm really having some struggles with it these days. But overall, it is a wonderful platform for other dance photographers to share their work. And there are some artists I never, would have known about because they're in Europe, they're in Canada, and being able to follow their work and their struggles and their achievements is really inspiring. I feel like I should have a more creative response for you on what my inspirations
not at all.
are. But
I think that's what I'm saying, because a lot of people, they think that people have this crazy elaborate story of how they find inspiration, but it's just the day-to-day stuff. You're on your day-to-day job, you find inspiration within that, which is looking at dancers and what they're doing. Everyone has an Instagram now, everyone goes on Instagram. I think it's just about how you view inspiration, that term inspiration. Are you expecting to feel crazy, fueled up to go chase your dreams, which is really not how it is. It's more so a pick me up, and then let's just keep trucking along. Let's just keep doing this one step forward. But it's not this I feel so inspired. I'm gonna go create this next piece of mine that I'm gonna be so proud of, and it's gonna blow up, and I'm gonna become famous. That's not how inspiration works.
It's not, and that's the thing is, one of the downsides of Instagram is it's the highlights reel, obviously, and it's the highlights reel of people's portfolio. So you're looking, and you're like, oh my goodness, that's amazing. You don't know how many shoots they did before that they were this is fine, and you didn't even see it on your feed because Instagram buried it down with the algorithm. So if you don't take the photo, it's not, you have to just go out and do it. You'll learn as you go, and maybe you'll get something awesome out of it. A lot of the shots that I get that are some of the things I'm most proud of, I didn't know they were gonna look like that. I'm not the kind of person that imagines a whole scene and then sets it up and, okay, fan here, light source here, that's not, it's just not in my wheelhouse. Yep. I'm more the kind of person, more documentary style, where I just come in, it's okay, what inspires me? And that's when the dancer you're working with can have a lot to do with that and their level of
very cool
kind of collaboration and interest in doing something that's maybe a little uncomfortable or a little out of their normal sort of poses. That's when it gets really fun, that people are willing to experiment and take risks.
That's awesome. Yeah, I just picked up something you just said earlier, was that you said you learn as you go. You're picking up things that what do you film on, or what do you film on right now? What do you take photos with?
I film on
What's your camera?
the Canon 5D Mark IV is. I think that's my third camera now. I'm the kind of person where I'm like, okay, you don't just get the nice gear to start with. That's cheating.
For sure.
You start with your iPhone and you start there, and then I think I had the XS. It was the cheapest consumer level SLR that you could buy.
Okay, yeah.
And then from there I went to the 60D, and then 10 years later, here I am at the
5D Mark IV.
Yeah.
Yep. So it's a slow progression. Definitely.
Exactly. Yeah.
I can relate to that.
Don't use gear as a crutch. It's too easy these days.
Yeah, because I mean, this stuff's coming out all the time.
And
So
it's getting cheaper and cheaper.
yeah, exactly.
For the consumer level.
For sure. And you've been in your career for what, 10 years now?
10 years,
in this
yeah.
in this position, and even then, you're still learning as you go. Which is my
definitely.
point, because a lot of people, they're like, I don't want to start my passion until I have this gear and this set of skills, and then I'm going to start pushing stuff out into like the community. But you can't. You have to just pick a point. Like, it's kind of like picking a point on the map, and you just got to go there and then just see where it goes, and you'll make your way around other places. That's kind of
Sometimes people will say, okay, well, where should I put my work? Like, should I start an Instagram account? Should I make it on my own account, or this one and my website? And I'm like, why are you worried about that stuff? No one cares. You need to start creating the work. Then you worry about what audience is going to see it. You don't have any work yet. Why are you worried about how many Instagram followers you have? That's not the place. That's not a good place to start. That career is not going to last very long if that's what you're worried about.
Definitely.
If you want to do that, then like find someone else who already has a brand and help them promote it. But if you want to, in order to create content, you got to start creating content.
Yeah, you got to do the work first.
You got to do
exactly.
A lot of people want things, but you need to do it. How much do you want it?
Exactly. Awesome. Okay, last question before we end the podcast.
Okay.
Burnout. Let's talk about it.
Yes, so real.
What are your thoughts on burnout?
I think it started around my generation. It's definitely prevalent in the younger generations, this idea of like entrepreneurship and being your own boss and running your own business. And it is hard. I think the more people are doing it, they realize, oh my God, this is not easy. The idea of like a steady paycheck and health insurance is starting to you're starting to see the reasons why people want to work for a company as opposed to just working for yourself, because it is, being responsible for every single part of your business is exhausting. Not having a place where you can go to work and then shut off your computer and not think about it until 9 a.m. the next morning, that takes a toll. When you're there lying in bed at 10 p.m. thinking about what you have to do tomorrow, all the gear you need to get, all the pieces, being your own web designer, your own social media person, doing Instagram stories. Instagram stories are awesome, but my God, I think that's created the most amount of work out of any of the new features in social media. It takes so much, and that's just as it's turning into be just as curated as the rest of the stuff. So now not only do I have to do stories, but also I have to have a feed that looks good. It's so much. So you have to take care of yourself. You have to check out once in a while. You have to,
Creative burnout.
Yeah.
Very real.
How do you deal with it?
It's a good question. I actually just made a video on this. I guess creative block burnout is like kind of along the similar lines, I guess, for me. I know it's a little bit different for most people, but there have definitely been times when I'm just like, overwhelmed, like, wow, this is a lot of work, this is a lot of content, I don't want to edit this video right now, I'm just feeling burnt out, like I haven't spent time with my family, I haven't ate a proper meal, like I definitely have felt those things. And when that happens to me, I usually just take a step back and I'm just like, okay, what am I actually doing this for? Is it the money? Do I actually need this money? Like, why am I even doing these things right now? And then I try to simplify, I try to like condense things, like I don't know. I don't like to call it minimalist because it's very it's a new term in 2018. It's trendy. It's minimalist. But I do try and take like a minimalist mental approach. Like, okay, is my mind organized right now? Like, are all my purposes and passions aligned in the way they should? Or am I being bombarded by like this gig or this following or this social media platform? I guess I unplug, like you just said.
Yeah. I think the only way I've dealt I work full-time at PNB, and then my the ballet photography is, a lot of that is on the side, is freelancing. And I used to, it would be the kind of thing where it's like, yeah, I'll come in on the weekend and do, 6 hours of shooting. Turns out that's too much. And turns out weekends are important to me. So now I only come in if I can, do a bunch of, it has to be worth it for my time, for me to give up part of my weekend. And when I think about the future and like having a family, it's like, I need to be able to build a freelance business that is sustainable, and being available 7 days a week is not sustainable for a lifetime. So it's tempting when you first start because you're like so full of energy. And that's the time when you should be hitting the pavement and burning yourself out a little and learning what your limits are. But definitely you have to set some boundaries that, a tiny gig that's like $200 on a Sunday, if it's gonna take away your whole weekend because now you can't go out of town for that thing that came up, like that's not worth it. So
I agree.
Weighing those pros and cons of,
I mean, it's common nowadays for people to be like, oh, hustle, hustle, hustle. And then like when they're doing that, they push away their family, they push away like taking care of themselves, they push away like the gym because they're on the hustle, you know what I mean? Like this entrepreneurial grind, but it's really not a safe place to be in my opinion. It's like work-life balance, you know what I mean?
Right, and no you still have to have it.
Yeah, exactly.
Even if you're working for yourself.
Exactly.
It's harder, it's much harder.
Yeah.
It's still good to have.
True. I'm always a big advocate of like working smarter, not harder. So if you can get, like, for me, like when I was working 8 hours a day, like those shifts, I'm like, oh, dude, what I'm doing, I could really get done in like 2 hours. If I really just set my mind to it, I could get it done in like 2 hours. So like, I feel like that needs to shift for you, right? Like, are you spending like 10 hours a day, like just kind of slowly getting your stuff done? Or do you want to just like focus for 2 hours, get it all done, and then spend the rest of your 8 hours, like, if you're a freelancer, obviously, to like take care of yourself, hit the gym, eat a proper meal, like hang out with your parents or hang out with your significant other or whatever that is, right?
And that's where some of the, not necessarily the inspiration can come from, but the regeneration of your just like being a human and taking a walk can do wonders. I walked to the bank the other day in my neighborhood in Ballard, and I was like, oh my God, I didn't know there were, there's this cool little co-working space here. I didn't even know. And I didn't know this bar used to be an old library. Like, I was like, oh my God, Lindsay, you need to walk around more. Like, what a...
Yeah. If you're listening, go take a walk to the bank in the next hour or so. But I'm glad in this podcast. Hopefully, if you're watching or listening, hopefully you feel like this was helpful in terms of finding your niche. Like the struggles you might face with it, and that it's all normal. I mean, you are very talented, and you definitely have found yourself in this niche of ballet. But it wasn't all like flowers and roses getting here. Like you had some serious struggles, and you're still working towards it, and you're still learning as you go. But thank you so much for joining the podcast today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Edward.
Yeah, you're actually our second female guest. Yes. Last week was our first, but yeah, I noticed like I was like doing episodes, and then like the first like 5 was like all guys, and I was like, that wasn't intentional, but I feel like I should probably start like featuring more creatives, make you more diverse. So where can people go to find your work, or you have a website? What's your handle?
Thanks for the plug.
Yeah.
On Instagram, I'm Lindsay Thomas Photo, at Lindsay Thomas Photo, and that's probably the best place to find me.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Well, you guys heard it here, so go check out our work. It's really awesome, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.